Kia ora, and welcome to the Dawn Chorus for Friday the 25th of October. I'm Bernard Hickey for the Kaka. This is my daily podcast / video that goes out with an email newsletter to paying subscribers via Substack. It's called the Kaka, and I focus on Aotearoa's political economy, particularly around housing, climate, and poverty reduction. A couple of scoops today I wanted to draw your attention to and try to explain why they're important, and also give you the details of a major report that came out overnight in the Northern Hemisphere. Firstly, I wanted to talk about Simeon Brown. Again, he really is the most influential minister in the government, I think, short of perhaps Nicola Willis or Chris Bishop. Certainly the three of them together are driving the entire government's economic, climate, housing, fiscal policy. And you have to say, without too much interference or monitoring or micromanagement at all from their Prime Minister. And that means we get an enormous number of announcements from Simeon Brown in particular, who is not just the Transport Minister, he's also the Local Government Minister and the Energy Minister. So that all comes together into a very important role in determining what type of transport we have, how much we invest, whether we invest. And what we've discovered in a report today from Oliver Lewis at BusinessDesk is that an announcement on Monday that he made about the Hawke's Bay Expressway, which was that building had begun on the Hawke's Bay Expressway, that decision was made by him without having received a business case for the project. This is a 27-kilometre long motorway, 4 lanes, which connects the north of Napier and Hastings, and essentially turns some existing roads into 2 lanes each way, big motorways. And according to some leaked documents, this motorway could cost anywhere around $1 billion, probably up to $1.2 billion. And what normally happens when you build a motorway like this is that you do a business case. You work out how much it's going to cost to build and what are the potential benefits of this motorway. How much time will it save? How many injuries will be reduced? How many fewer people will die? What is the wider economic impact? And it should also include what is the climate impact, because, of course, it's an enormous amount of emissions that are produced in the building of a road, and, of course, the number of extra cars that it's going to encourage onto that road. So you'd expect that $1 billion would require some sort of business case. If I was spending $1 billion of someone else's money, I would expect someone to check on me and make sure that I wasn't just wasting it. Because this government has talked a lot about being very laser focused on value for money for the taxpayer. However, that's not the case here. Simeon Brown was so keen to get going on the building, he said, just take it from me, this is a good road, and let's go. So he did. And Oliver Lewis points this out today, that this road is now going ahead, or at least the early stages of it, without a business case. Simeon Brown is unapologetic about this. He says, right, we just needed to get moving. And NZTA has said that some of this work can be done and would always be done, and wouldn't be lost if the decision is to not go ahead with this road of national significance was made. This is a dangerous and reckless approach, in my view, particularly when Simeon Brown has said that all of the new investment in transport from the government in the next 5 years will be on roads, particularly on these roads of national significance, which we know increase emissions and are incredibly costly. We also have heard from Simeon Brown that these things will be done and paid for by the users through tolls and congestion charges. Yet that's not the expectation of drivers and voters in Hawke's Bay, and he certainly didn't mention that in the announcement that the road had started. This is $1 billion worth of work that started without an idea of how it's going to be paid for, how much it's going to cost, and what the benefits are. This government makes a big point of saying they are all about the business, all about the economy, all about the numbers. Yet in this case, they've gone ahead to spend $1 billion, 1.5 billion, 2 billion, $500 million, who knows, without checking. So I think that's worthy of having a look. And you've got to look too at this road. I mean, this is part of the road that's going to be widened to 4 lanes. For those of you familiar with how the Hawke's Bay is shaped and what it does, a good chunk of it, particularly in the north and towards the west, is reclaimed land after the earthquakes, and it is particularly prone to flooding, as we saw during Cyclone Gabrielle, when there was an enormous amount of flooding in those particular areas. And as you can see from that picture there, that's the current road, a pretty basic 2-lane road. It's going to go to 4. And you do wonder what the climate implications of this are as sea levels rise. Moving on now to another thing that's just come up in the last day, a scoop from Mark Dalder at Newsroom yesterday that Blue Float Energy, which is one of the 2 major organisations looking at building offshore wind farms, and we're talking a gigawatt here of wind farms, particularly in the Taranaki Bight, north and south, that one of them, Blue Float Energy, which is a Spanish-based company, has pulled out. So we're talking multi-billion dollars of potential foreign investment, has pulled out because the Trans-Tasman Resources Limited proposal to do seabed mining in that area is apparently going ahead. It was put onto the fast-track approvals list, and that was released last week. And the builders of these wind farms understandably say, we can't proceed if we don't know if the land or the seabed that we want to build on is available for us, or if it hasn't been disturbed or ripped up or isn't about to be ripped up. So just imagine trying to build wind farms in an area where you've got a bunch of ships trawling back and forth, digging up the ground underneath your turbines. So, of course, they've pulled out. Now, the government has said all along, we think you guys can coexist, that we can have wind and seabed mining all together. And the experts in the field say, no, this is not possible. So the government said, we think we know better, and they've put Trans-Tasman Resources onto the fast-track approvals list. Lo and behold, Blue Float Energy pulls out. And it really conflicts with the government's avowed strategy of significantly increasing renewable energy, and also its avowed strategy of bringing in foreign investment. So this is quite a big development, and obviously a real blow for Taranaki and for those who hope for significant amounts of renewable electricity from wind. Now, the next one is our solution story of the day, or a chart of the day. This is the good news on the other side of the renewable energy coin. An excellent demonstration of just how fast adoption, production of solar panels, electric vehicles, and electric batteries has been compared to what the industry had forecast over the years. So all 3 of those showing exponential growth. And, it really is an opportunity for everyone to electrify everything as fast as they can using these panels and batteries. There is no shortage of space pointed at the sun, particularly roofs, warehouses, houses, not to mention a gazillion car parks radiating heat from the tarmac, which could very simply be covered by very simple panel roofs with, if you're clever, some charging points for the electric cars that may use them. Yet when you're seeing no real action from the government on this, its first response during the winter energy crisis that we had was to go straight for gas. And currently it's moving ahead with plans to import LNG. Keep an eye on that one as well. We're putting out a climate wrap today with Catherine Dyer, which talks quite a bit about the climate implications of natural gas, which in the past has been portrayed as a transition fuel from nasty oil and coal to clean renewable electricity. Turns out, according to the research, that in the short term, at least the first 10 years, when there's a lot of methane that escapes, it is actually 30% more emitting than coal. So clean gas is actually dirtier than coal. So the government is really not in tune with its own beliefs and statements on emissions and renewable electricity when these decisions happen, let alone foreign investment. Big news overnight is the United Nations Environment Programme has put out its annual report on the emissions gap. So how much do we need to reduce emissions to achieve our Paris targets of keeping the warming of the climate to 1.5 degrees or lower? We now know, of course, that we're pretty much already there at 1.5 degrees, and we're not reducing emissions nearly fast enough. The United Nations Environment Programme estimates that we need to reduce emissions from now in the next 6 years by 42%, when actually emissions increased last year by 1.3%. And by 2035, so we're talking 11 years away, we need to have a more than halving of emissions from their current levels, which requires emergency war-style transformations of economies, which is simply not happening, and certainly not in Aotearoa. And another useful chart that's come out of that report showing exactly which countries are behind where they need to be. The irony here is that those countries that are most likely to achieve their Paris targets include the likes of Mexico, Russia, and India. That's partly because Russia has had a massive deindustrialization. But when you see the likes of Turkey, which is certainly growing quickly, India and Mexico, they are countries in the developing world who seem to be doing a lot better. China in a much healthier position as well than, let's say, the United States, the European Union, or even the UK. Australia in the bad place as well. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was today's Dawn Chorus for Friday, the 25th of October on the Kaka. I hope you have a great weekend. Shortly today, we will be putting out the weekly climate wrap with Catherine Dyer, and also a recording of last night's Hoon, which included myself, Peter Bale, Catherine Dyer, Robert Patman, and special guest Elaine Monaghan from the United States, talking about the upcoming US elections. Fun times. Ka kite anō.